Halli Casser-Jayne, and welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, where along with my partner in politics, veteran White House correspondent and Time and Newsweek alum Matthew Cooper, we slice and dice all things politics, and some days are lawmakers too. Before we get started, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show podcast is always available at hallicasserjayne.com and wherever you most like to listen to your podcasts. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Halli Show Quotes. Now, let's get started. It's Halli and Matt time. Here we go. Good morning, Matthew. I missed you, my friend.
Miss you, Halli. Great to be back.
It's
what's going on? What's going on in Florida?
We're going to talk about Florida in a second. We're going to talk about me. We're going to talk about outrage. So, we normally start with COVID, but we have to start with outrage because there's something going on in this country, and I've been talking to a lot of people about this. They're feeling the same way that I do. I wake up every single morning, clenched jaw, stomach in knots. Oh my God. Well, we both know that I'm fairly dramatic. Okay, I'll give you that. But Matt, things are not good. And they don't appear to be getting any better. They only appear to be getting worse. But what I'm concerned about is we're all walking around with a lot of outrage, and there are a lot walking out with not enough outrage. And I want to talk about that because I think we're in a strange place in this country right now. And we're getting into the weeds, and we're talking about COVID, and we're talking about the debt ceiling, and but what we're not talking about is what this country is right now and where we are. And I think I want to kind of talk about the issues, but talk about it in terms of that, of are we outraged enough? Aren't we outraged enough? I'm on the side of where's the outrage? Talk to me. What do you think?
Well, when you say outrage, you mean...
There are things going on here.
I think there are a lot of angry people, but they're not all angry in the way you want them to be. So
okay, let's talk
tell
about
me
that.
what you wish there was more of. On what topics?
You know, sure, I spend a lot of time in the Twitterverse, and I think that's a certain caliber of people. But if I go over to Facebook, which I rarely do these days, but if I do go over to Facebook, everybody's commenting on the daily things that are happening, you know, politically. But they're not, they're moving right from that back to, did you see this, Netflix show? And so we just we're just kind of going along here with this, subliminal angst all the time, all of us, because I think even those people are, but nothing's getting done. So I feel like I'm on the mouse on the wheel or the hamster on the wheel, going round and round and round, and we're getting nowhere. And I think that's showing up in Biden's polls. I think that's showing up everywhere. That's what it is. That's the problem. And I think we need to address it because I think that's a failure on the part of the Biden administration. It's a failure to garner the outrage and put it and make it work for us and fix the things that ail us in this country. Am I making any sense at all?
I think so. Well, I guess I have a couple of thoughts. One is, I think, social media is kind of a distorted lens. Twitter, because it's, both of them, because it has algorithms that are designed to put certain things in front of you and suppress others based on what, the companies think will be most profitable. So you're not getting the most representative sample of the people you're following. And then the people you're following are not really necessarily representative of the country. So I think you have to, take a big chunk of salt with whatever you see online. I guess I'm less worried that people aren't engaged enough with the problems at hand. I mean, everybody's dealing with, COVID and other things, maybe, in their own way and not in a way that you would necessarily like, but I don't think people are detached from the world. And to the extent they are, I'm not sure that's always a bad thing. So much of our lives are politicized these days that, reflecting on a Netflix show, I'm not sure is the worst thing.
Except to say,
yeah.
There's a certain numbness that's going on, I think, too, because it's been going on for so long, and it's just, gotten so much more intense. So even people who never were, steeped in politics now are, because we don't do anything else in this country but politics, seriously. I could have a conversation about that. So I do feel that nothing is getting accomplished. There are a lot of ideas floating out there, and we're going to talk about those ideas in a minute. But we aren't moving towards a solution to any of this. We're just going on and on and on down the same train track. And it's almost as if it's, it's just going around in a circle. Nothing is fixed.
When you say we're not getting a solution to this, what was
COVID goes on and on and on, and there is a solution, but nobody's willing to take it. The debt ceiling, Biden's whole agenda that we're going to talk about in a second. Everything is just never done. We get nowhere. And I'm going to go back to what I've been saying to you for months now. There is the Trump train, too. And let's talk about that in a second. Trump goes on and on and on. We have all sorts of now evidence, hard evidence, as to what he was really up to January 6th and his cronies. And yet, Trump is still controlling the game 8 months later. And that's a failure. It's a failure on the law. It's a failure on the Biden administration. It's a failure on the Republicans because they know who he is. We just aren't moving forward. We're stuck in friggin' hell. And I'm getting angry about it. And if I'm getting angry about it, I think other people are starting to get a little bit frustrated with all of this. Like, fix this. This is America. How are we so screwed up everywhere you turn? You can't even get Democrats to agree now. I mean, it's nuts what's going on. Who is going to take the hammer and go, stop. Let's move forward. Let's fix this once and for all. It's not hard, Matt. It really isn't. Biden had a clue last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? When he started pushing on the mandates. He did it. The world could have crumbled around him. The Republicans could have taken him and strung him up to die. They couldn't. Everybody went along with it. Everybody who is in leadership is scared, and they're not leading.
Well,
I think I'm leaving you speechless. I'm kind of getting a kick out of this. Let me go on and on.
Well, you're covering a lot of things here, so.
But it's all under the same. It's all under the same umbrella, which is we're just stuck, and we've been stuck for a while, and we shouldn't be stuck.
Well, I don't think stuck is the right way to look at it. I think we have profound disagreements, and that makes it hard to forge consensus.
Okay.
But
so I'm going to disagree with... No. Now, see, there you go. I'm going to disagree with you. These aren't disagreements. This has got nothing to do with agreements or disagreements. This is about people doing what they need to do for themselves, i.e. there is no leadership. Disagreements, Republicans don't stand for anything other than disagreeing. So that's part of the problem. Unless you really are committed to something, what are you going to argue? I mean, Mitch McConnell carrying on about the debt ceiling and all that kind of crap. That's a political game he's playing. And the Dems aren't smart enough to just go, stop. We'll take care of this. We're paying for your bills. That's another thing the public doesn't understand. They think this thing has got to do with what's coming. This debt thing is about what's already been spent by the Republicans to the tune of $5 trillion, during the Trump administration. That's where I disagree, because I don't think this is about policy.
Well, you're covering a lot of things here. So
all right, I'll be quiet. I'll let you.
If you want my response,
yes.
Let me break it down.
Here you go.
If you don't, we'll just move on.
No, I want you to talk.
Look, on the COVID front, it's not that we're doing nothing. I mean, the United States is a dynamic enough society that we came up in record time with the vaccines that are making an enormous difference. in people's lives. And there have been, enormous changes in behavior on behalf of, the hundreds of millions of people who live in this country. Now, are there disagreements about mask mandates, about willingness to take the vaccine? Yeah. Is the Biden administration taking admirable steps to pressure people to take the vaccine? I think we both agree they are. That's different than being stuck. That's, the kind of robust conflict that can happen in a free society. It's not the same as being stuck. It's not a lack of leadership. I mean, DeSantis, however wrong he is not displaying a lack of leadership. He may be leading in the wrong direction, but describing it as a lack of leadership, I think, is a misnomer. On the debt ceiling, look, the Republicans are being pricks and engaging in their most cynical brinksmanship. I agree, most people don't understand the debt ceiling or haven't heard of it. And that is the kind of dysfunctional Congress we've seen for a long time now. Eventually the debt ceiling will be raised after a lot of agony. Whether that's a lack of leadership, I don't know. I think it's more bad leadership from McConnell, the best leadership that Democrats can get. And, they're moving forward. But I guess I don't agree quite with it. I don't think stuck is quite the right term.
Well, I don't know what else to call it, but we've been in this just horrible barrel, low bottom of it for a very long time. And I guess I had this conversation at a dinner party last week. Let me just say this because you'll enjoy this. What people are saying to me is, what's wrong here right now is that nobody is willing to put themselves on the line to stop this crap. Like Biden has an opportunity here. How old is he?
But what is this? I'm
going to tell you. I'm going to say it to you. How old is Biden? He's 78. Is that it?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. So he's 78, so the chances of him running again, well, maybe he will, but he'll be a doddering old fool if he does. But he could take this presidency, and he can say, you know what, I am really going to stop this right now. This is what I'm going to do. In other words, stop the discussion. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we have to stop discussing, and these leaders need to start doing. Now, I'm going to argue with you about DeSantis till I'm blue in the face, because that's not leadership. Because he's not leading. He's taking care of himself. It looks like leadership to some, but on this on all of this, you could just say, "I'm going to do what I have to do, take it or leave it, no conversation." Now, granted, you have a Democratic group of people who I think are the screwiest. I think they're screwier in one way than the Republicans because they ought to know better. So I don't know what you do with that. But somebody, we need Moses to come down off the mount, with his tablet and say, this is what we're going to do, and that's the end of the game here. I mean, Biden could stop all of this by just breaking part of this is COVID. Of course, we're all freaked out, and particularly down here. I don't have to tell you how freaked out we are. But you could just say, this is what we're going to do. Everybody gets the vaccination. Schools are going to require vaccinations. Goodbye, good luck. That's it. Done it before. Yeah. George Washington did it.
Well, that was in the military.
All right, so
look,
we're going around in circle, but I think my outrage is I'm not alone, and I think people are getting frustrated, and I think this is going to hurt Biden a lot if he doesn't get more emphatic about everything that he does from here on in. If he loses, by the way, this infrastructure deal and the debt ceiling thing and the whole 9 yards, it's over for him anyway. Yeah?
You could be right.
I mean, so personally, his presidency is on the line here. So let's go back to COVID. Let's go back to COVID, and I'll tell you why. Let's bring this to Biden. Last week, first of all, 200.
Can I just go back to what you said? Because
yes, of course.
Look, the American system does not produce Moses. the presidents are limited in what they can do. He cannot dictate that everyone get a shot and then, have the military enforce it.
I didn't say
I know you didn't, but my point is you're expecting things out of him he's not capable of providing. He can use the tools of the federal government to put pressure on people to get the shot, which is what he's done. I think that's a good thing. It's going to be challenged in the courts, so I'm not sure he's going to get everything he's proposed, but I'm glad he's trying. I think we've had this discussion in one form or another for years. Why isn't Nancy Pelosi doing this, or why the Democrats do this? And I just think fundamentally we have different view of their capacity and their power to execute the things you want, they want, and I want.
Okay, so let's bring up Afghanistan. Who would have thought 6 months ago that Biden could pull out, be up against the entire world press on this, and 2 weeks later, it's not even on anybody's radar, and we're out, and we're saving that money, and oh my God, who could have thought that a president of the United States could pull it off? There are possibilities here.
Well, for the same reason, George. Well, he is the commander-in-chief, and he has latitude with the military.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is previous presidents didn't have the balls to do it. So
I agree with that.
Biden proved that if you have balls, you do what needs to get done. FDR proved that, too. I mean,
FDR had 71 senators out of 96.
But he also...
it's a difference.
Well, fine. Okay, so leave him out of the conversation if you want to play that game. But the fact is that if a president wants to get something done, they do it. And I don't think requiring people to get vaccinated is unpresidential. I think it's the very dictionary, definition of what a president ought to do. Lead. Do it. You be the one who takes the risk to do what needs to be done. I'm going to talk about COVID in a minute. Currently, there are 2,047 new coronavirus cases every day. That's the highest since March, right? Half of the unvaccinated matter saying that they want to get vaccinated, but they don't. Because who's controlling the dialogue here, or is the vaccination available to them? Florida now has the 10th highest COVID death rate in the U.S., up from 27th in March. And now you're talking about DeSantis. He appoints the Surgeon General who believes in voodoo. I mean, he's writing essays questioning the safety of COVID-19 vaccinations, the effectiveness of masks. And yesterday he did the most unbelievable thing and said if your kid tests positive for COVID, they can go to school. They don't have to quarantine if they're not showing symptoms. This is happening in America. That's why I'm outraged.
I would be outraged about DeSantis. I think he's a terrible governor, and I think he's putting a lot of people in danger.
I want to put a firecracker under your ass today.
What? I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you about any of the problems with DeSantis.
But he's not the only governor doing this crap, and I'm just wondering why are they getting away with it?
I believe that's true. I think we have a different definition of what leadership is. To me, leadership is not pursuing wise policies at personal political risk. It just means action, either good or bad, and he is. He is doing.
You can go there, but I think I'm putting it on a different plane than you are. Literally, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying figuratively. But when you look at a guy like DeSantis pulling this off, I mean, why hasn't he been arrested? This is genocide. That's what he's committing, is genocide. People are dying at outrageous rates. It has hit me so hard, this COVID thing. I can't tell you how many people I know are either sick, in the hospital, on friends on ventilators. Seriously. Vaccinated friends, by the way. It's scary down here, and it changes your perspective a whole lot.
No, I can understand that. I can understand that.
But seriously, this is a man who's out of control. By the way, I wanted to also, I'm sorry for jumping around on you, but I wanted to go find footage from the presser he did when he introduced this voodoo man, Dr. Joseph Ladapo. Harvard graduate, hard to believe. As is DeSantis, also Yale.
Right.
But, it's like, don't send your kids to Harvard or Yale these days. But, I mean, right. He is biting on his... Will you promise me you'll go find this footage? Because I want you to comment on it.
Absolutely.
He's in the background, and he is literally chewing his lips, which are filled with some kind of stuff. I don't know what it was.
The governor is.
The governor. And he's just looking like he's ravaged and tortured and sick and maybe on drugs. His eyes don't look clear. Not one reporter reported it. You need to go find this footage. It's bizarre.
I will.
Now I'm saying to myself, is this guy on drugs? Is this guy sick? Is this guy eating something crazy? I mean, it's real scary footage. Not a word. And staying on the COVID thing, in Duval County, where they did go ahead and issue the mask mandates, guess what? Cases are way down.
What?
In schools. Mm-hmm. Because the kids are forced to wear the masks in Duval County. So it's proven. I mean, there's a test case for you. There's a petri dish.
No.
Put a mask on your kids and, But the big figure that rolled around this week, 690,000 plus Americans have died, which is more than died in the 1918 flu pandemic. So I do think, if you're talking leadership, you need to get the Republicans to sit down with the Democrats and say, we're all going to be dead. What are we going to do here?
Right.
Okay. My rant is over. Are you
okay. Okay, I hear you.
I know, and I think it needed to be it needs to be looked at. Let's go to Trump, okay? So
yes,
all this information's coming out, my friend. Hardcore facts now, and 8 months later, dude is still in control, if you will. Dude is still in office, and dude is still living in Mar-a-Lago, having a gay old time. So this morning, Lawrence Tribe, who is the great guru of attorneys, legal guys, posted a couple of tweets that my head was shaking. He said, it's hard to justify Department of Justice inaction in the face of this rapidly mounting evidence of a criminal conspiracy to commit sedition against the U.S. government and to give aid and comfort to an insurrection. And he cites a section of the U.S. Code, right? By the same token,
right.
He says Trump could remain individual number one and unindicted co-conspirator if the Attorney General concludes, rightly or wrongly, that the downside of putting Donald in the dock and making him a martyred hero to his followers exceeds the upsides. Let him see that being denied the spotlight. Biden is consulting with this guy. Help me, please.
Biden's consulting with Larry Tribe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I lost the thread here. So you're saying Tribe is being too mealy mouthed?
I think he's being kind of weird. Actually, I think he's I think that each of those tweets, one was from a lawyerly aspect, and the other one, was political. I guess. The law's not working right now. It seriously is not working because, it's 8 months later and 8 months later, it's 5 years later. And dude is still, like I said, living in lap luxury. I think the only good news that comes out of all this was Adam Schiff, who confirmed that the Judiciary Committee, the January 6th committee, is investigating Trump's insurrection as an attempted coup, which was like a story that I don't think got enough play. Are you frustrated with the lack of on this January 6th thing? I think this is an ongoing coup. I think that's what we learned in the last week.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think the, new evidence that they didn't really believe their claims about fraud in the election adds to that. And so, I think there's definitely a case for, the Attorney General to take a more aggressive stand on all of this, which he generally hasn't done. So, I think I'm all for that too. And, and we'll see what what these committees come up with. Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger on the special January 6th commission in the House. See what happens with the New York prosecution of the Trump organization, where there were hints this week that, some more indictments could be coming. So, I agree with all of this, and I don't know about Tribe's role in this, but I think there is a case for Garland to be taking a more aggressive stance here.
The thing about it is, Matt, the January 6th Commission can go on for 2 to 5 years. I mean, there's no time limit on how long it takes them to do the work that they need to do. They're talking again about subpoenas, and I'm like, I had this argument with a friend of mine the other day and saying, well, the subpoenas mean nothing because it's Trump. And his team's not going to answer to those subpoenas, and they're going to go through the courts, and it's going to be the same old, same old. This is where I'm saying, the hamster on the wheel. There is no justice here at this point, and something I think far more aggressive needs to be done because, as I say, I believe this is an ongoing coup. I don't think this is something that, began and is ended. It's, every day that you read something else crazy that goes down from one of these wackadoodles, you realize it's a manipulation, in order to get to where they want to go. It's interesting because Weisselberg, by the way, that court date, which is proof of what I'm saying, was put off to the end of 2022. So, I asked the question, who's the court working for? I mean, it's, by the way, which I made to Larry Tribe, who agreed. Because everybody's entitled to a fair and swift trial, according to the law. But there's the other side, too, that we, the people, are entitled to know what, to get to the bottom of a thing.
Sure.
So you've got judges who are playing really crazy stuff with this. But I'm of the opinion that you cannot continue to let this smolder. I've said to you 1,000 times, until they take care of Trump, none of this goes away. None of this gets cleared up. And if they don't take care of Trump, goodbye America. But do you obviously share my frustration with all of this? This is crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I didn't follow the judges. I mean, I knew he put off on some of the Weisselberg stuff, but yeah, look, that's a frustratingly slow process. I don't know what Garland's got planned, if anything, and the January 6th Commission is going to be a slog. So yeah, I think it is frustrating, and I do agree that he's remains very much the leader of the Republican Party.
January 6th also, Steve Bannon admitted that he had been a part of this. Steve Bannon, who had been sentenced and then was, pardoned.
Right.
Another lunatic running around causing all sorts of havoc. I just don't think this can continue because I don't see a good ending here. I see escalation of something that I think, who's the guy who did the Civil War series?
Ken Burns.
Did you hear what he said the other day?
I don't think so.
He said this is worse than the Civil War.
Well, that's bad. That's bad. That's not good. That's definitely not what you want.
Well, I think that's pretty incredible.
Well, look, I think it's, I think it's quite worrisome, and I think, it's gonna take some real electoral defeats of these folks, if not, an indictment of Trump.
Well, we're not going to get the electoral wins, the Democrats, or the sane people, if you will, if Biden can't pull off his agenda. And how are you feeling about him pulling off the agenda?
Dicey. Dicey, but, let's see. I think I still think they can get to, a 1.8, 1.9, $1 trillion reconciliation bill, which is pretty fucking big. So, I still think he can get a big thing to brag about going into the midterms. But, the whole thing could fall apart too. We don't really know yet. But hey, how do you, just going back to Trump, how do you like him suing his niece? What a guy.
Yeah. What do you mean, what a guy? He was suing his niece, for Christ's sakes. He's the guy who made her grow up in almost poverty by not giving her
You're right,
her father.
Right. No, I know.
I mean, he's just, he's a nightmare. everything that I've read about this is that, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Who was the other person he sued with that? He sued her, and he sued the New York Times. Right. And,
right.
He's a media whore.
Yes.
It gets silent on him, and he does what he can in order to get himself back in the media and manipulate the media. It's really kind of sad, actually. Yeah, I don't know, but she's a smart cookie, that girl. I like her.
Oh yeah, she's having
a gay old time, and she's just doing her thing, and she's just making it real clear. I'm not taking any crap from my crazy damn uncle.
Your bonkers uncle.
But
yeah.
But by the way, follow her, folks, because she really has a better pulse on all of this than just about anybody who's out there right now. I'm intrigued by her brains, her savvy, and her understanding about how Trump operates. More people ought to pay attention to what she has to say. Listen, let's go from the sublime to the ridiculous. Let's talk about the Haitians. Good God, that footage. Yeah, that just made me crazy. Lassoing up black people from horseback. 1867.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Well, don't, because you'll get upset. It's really, 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 like, it's a film. What's his name? The one who did the movie about who's the crazy guy? My favorite director. It's a film out of one of our modern day filmmakers. In its cruelty, it's just really humiliating to watch. But I want to talk about it. And the special envoy Daniel Foote this morning resigned, protesting the inhumane, large-scale expulsions of Haitian migrants. But here's my question for you: how did these people suddenly appear on the border? There's a conspiracy theory going on here that kind of equates to, remember when Trump kept having all of these caravans appear and then they suddenly disappeared?
You're implying that someone is kind of encouraging the Haitians to come in an effort to hurt Biden. Is that sort of where you're going?
Yeah, and I'm not alone in that theory, by the way. In fact, it's not my theory. It's one that I've been hearing from some pundits who and reporters who are questioning what the hell's going on down there.
Well, that would be something. Were it proven, regardless, it's a human tragedy, and it's a big political problem, and we'll see how it plays out now that they're removing so many Haitians from that area around Del Rio, Texas. So.
10,000 Haitians. We never had a Haitian there before, and God knows Haiti has been through year after year after year after year, and then suddenly there they are. Yeah. It just seemed a little.
Well,
strange.
I was unaware of the previous Haitian migration to Brazil and Chile, which is where most of these folks at the Del Rio Bridge came from. They didn't come straight from Haiti.
And Florida, we have a huge Haitian population that came with the last earthquake and the one before that.
Right. But we're talking about the people at the bridge.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, they find ways to get to where they need to go. It's just interesting they suddenly appeared where the one place where the Republicans, and by the way, if you do like I do when you start going to all the Republican talking heads and on Twitter, and suddenly that message is, they pass it around and they all tweet the same thing.
The message for Haitians to come here?
Well, saying, what does Joe do?
Right.
Yeah. It's like they're very coordinated, unlike the Democrats. In their messaging.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Right. Well, as you noted with the resignation, he is being attacked for being too Trumpian with the deportations.
Yeah. It's just, I just don't understand. What are we missing here about this immigration issue? It's just really very strange how they feel about immigration on Capitol Hill.
Oh, yeah. Well, many different views on Capitol Hill about it. And so, look, this is...
They can't solve it. And I don't get it.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
It's in Afghanistan. It just goes on and on and on.
I hear you.
Yeah. Is it the elite? Is that it? What does something happen to people when they get to Washington? Suddenly they become the elite, better than, different than. Something happens in the incarnation from the guy, from bumfuck whatever, to when they get to Capitol Hill. And then
I don't know if it's they. I think it's really mostly a Republican problem, more than a Washington problem. I mean, I think the Republicans are just, determined not to let Democrat presidents get anything done. And so, they put the kibosh on everything they can.
And Democrats do nothing to fight back. Remember that wheel I was talking about? This is why I'm so outraged, because the hamster on the wheel, go round and round and round.
Oh yeah, hamster on the wheel, gotcha.
Okay, this is why. This is why. All right, let's go to the Supreme Court. You want to go to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so Amy Coney Barrett and what was his name? The other one, trying to defend the court and saying, we're not a bunch of political, yahoos. We're the austere Supreme Court, except they're not. And it's interesting that two Republicans felt the need to say so. And the Supreme Court, for the first time in its lifetime, has incredibly low poll numbers. My
yeah,
goodness.
I think as long as it's seen as a political body, it's going to reflect that in the polls, and people see it as a political body, and I think with pretty good reason at this point. So that's worrisome to all sides in the court, and that's why you're seeing Stephen Breyer and Barrett and others defending the institution, but it's hard to defend at times. Especially, things like this Texas abortion ruling, where they let this
by the night court
unconstitutional law go through. So.
By the night court.
Night court, exactly. It is the night court. Next. Next.
Okay. Here's a strange one that came out. Did you read this thing about Dilbert, cartoonist Adams, and the Matt Gaetz story? That he had the story before anybody else. Did you see that? By the way,
I did not see that. Yeah. I know he's sort of a Trumpy guy.
Yeah. So apparently he was aware of the charges before they became public charges. I only bring it up because Matt Gaetz is still walking free, folks. And it's September 23rd. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no indictment of Matt Gaetz, even though it seemed like it might be imminent.
Mm-hmm. Like everything else. All right. We're in the crazies now. Can we go to the Iron Dome? Which has stopped millions of Israelis from being killed?
Yeah, Iron Dome.
And they're taking that funding away? Huh, what? The same people? Democrats have an Israel problem, my friend. I know you don't always agree with me on that, but they do.
Well, I think I'm starting to come around to your position on that, because, this was a pretty big statement out of the House. Now, the leadership's appalled, and they say they're going to get the money another way, but, swiping the funding for this purely defensive system that blocks an impressive percentage of rockets coming in from Gaza Strip.
Saves lives.
And saves Arab and Jewish lives in the state of Israel is a big deal. And, without any rationale. It's a purely defensive weapon. If Israel didn't have Iron Dome, they would pursue a much more aggressive posture towards Gaza. It would only increase the number of deaths on both sides. It's really
it's bizarre, and it's the same people. It's the same people. And, you gotta call it for what it is. It's anti-Semitism by those same people. Nancy's not in control of that. And that's, when she's gone, good luck. There's a big movement to get a lot of these never-Trumpers to become Democrats, and some have just kind of walked the line in between. The Democrats could use an infusion of some of these Republican The Democratic Party could use an infusion of some of these Republicans. to fix some of this stuff. I think it would be the greatest thing in American history if you could get to that and get to that centrist place, even if it means a little right. But then, I'm no progressive, so.
Right. Well, it's it's certainly a disturbing vote, and it was very much the squad leading it, and it's.
I know, right?
I share your frustration.
and I'll tell you something scary about it, because when you start to read the numbers about anti-Semitism, and there was just a report out of some of these, Ivy League schools, where Jewish kids are just not even telling anybody that they're Jewish because there's so much anti-Semitism on the campuses. AE5, which is a huge, Jewish sorority, is threatened day in and day out across the nation. It's worrisome. It's very, very worrisome. I wanted to go now to Lindsey Graham, from the sublime to the ridiculous. So, have you noticed that Lindsey's not making a lot of appearances, talking? I don't watch Fox. He may be on that, but he's not in the day-to-day dialogue anymore in the regular press or the online press. Have you noticed?
Yeah, it does seem. Now that you mention it, he does seem a little quieter.
Yeah, he's a lot quieter. And then Trump went after him last night in the middle of the night. I mean, there's a feud going on between he and. I think he put his foot down and said, "I've had enough," Mr. Graham said.
Right.
That could be important. Because if Trump loses Graham, that'd be the first frontliner in the Trump administration to say, "I've had enough."
Well, he said that on the night of January 6th.
Well, he did, but then he kind of backtracked off of that.
Right. Well, I think that's his MO, right? I mean, if he backs away, he'll back. Yeah, he's just, spineless.
You think? Here's a little under the radar. We'll go back to Biden said that if Iran sticks to the original nuclear deal, so would the U.S. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Yes, it's underreported.
I know they've.
Go ahead.
I know they've been having trouble, getting back to an agreement. So, I think the U.S. has been, more reluctant than Iran to go back to the table. But I hadn't seen this latest development.
Yeah.
So how do you read that?
I think that he doesn't need to have another fight right now, and he's trying to quell that one. So that, you can just kind of let that one float along for a while, and let's just stay on the domestic agenda as much as possible. Although he certainly made a mess with that France thing. What was that about? And the French are pissed. And
I guess he's going to go meet Macron next month, and they're trying to smooth things over with the ambassadors. I guess the ambassador's coming back, but I mean, clearly France was taken by surprise and pissed off that they lost this enormous submarine contract, and the Chinese are pissed, and
what was that?
Well, I don't feel like we have the full details about why they couldn't have, I don't really understand it, to be honest. I mean, I know the basics of what happened, that, France had this contract with Australia to produce these nuclear subs, but then Australians, claiming that France was behind anyway and wasn't really delivering, formed this nuclear sub-alliance with the UK and the US. Of course, these subs aren't going to be out for another decade, so it's not like there's an imminent arrival of these things. But the loss of the huge contract, and I guess not having what they perceived as enough warning, really ticked off the French.
I have absolutely no proof of what I'm about to say at all. Okay? Zero.
Go for it.
But here I go. Ron Klain is a very interesting chief of staff. And we should do a show just on Ron Klain, because he really is a fascinating guy. But I think he had a personal rift with France. That's what I think.
Wait, who had a personal rift?
Ron Klain
had a rift?
I think that,
what?
Well, because I think I said I have absolutely no proof. This is just my gut thing going on, okay? There's an anti-Semitism twist to this. Things are kind of weird over in France right now. Talk about moving right wing. I think
this was mostly
personal.
The Aussies.
Yeah, but I also think this
was
I think
the Aussies.
Yeah, but they had a sign. This was a deal that, this didn't just happen. Biden knew what was going on. The administration was entrenched in this. I just think that there's some stuff. I think there's a lot of stuff when it comes to his foreign policy, Biden, i.e. / Ron Klain, because, I always think that the chief guy is really the guy. There's some crazy shit going on with foreign policy in Biden. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the crazy part.
Yeah, nothing's so crazy anymore. I'm going to talk about that in a second also. I also wanted to bring this up, Matt. Under the radar, but I think everybody needs to pay attention to this because this is huge. The Republicans control Florida, and there's some very important land in South Florida. And when he campaigned to run for governor, DeSantis, there's an argument about putting a road right through the Everglades, which they're trying to clean up right now. You lose the Everglades, you're going to lose Florida. So they know that they're at critical mass down here. And they have now, yesterday, DeSantis quietly signed off on putting the road through the protected Everglade wetlands. This is like going into, the Amazon and messing with the rainforest. I just want that on the radar. You heard it here. And if you hear anything about this,
no.
You need to be.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah. I hadn't heard of it.
Right, because this is the kind of story that goes nowhere. I know you're on the crime rate thing. It's bad, Matt, right?
Yes, it is. It's really bad.
You worried about
huge surge?
You worried about that affecting?
I'm worried. I'm worried about its effect on people, mostly on people who are already dealing with a lot. That's my primary concern. But secondarily, I know I've seen, I think anyone of a certain age has seen how devastating the crime issue can be for Democrats. So I really worry about it for the Democrats. I really think Biden and Garland and Harris have been very slow on this. And, I think people like Eric Adams, the next mayor of New York, get it. And a lot of Democrats don't.
Clearly. Keep your eye on that one, too. How about W stepping into stump for Liz Cheney?
Yeah, well, look, I think, she, first of all, a long-time relationship between the Bushes and the Cheneys. He was W's vice president. Dick was H.W.'s Secretary of Defense. And there's a lot of personal loyalty there, despite some strains between W and Cheney, Dick Cheney, at the end of W's presidency. But, yeah, I just, I hope that helps her. I don't know if that's really a help.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you.
At this point, you want, you want a nut job to come out and endorse you.
Well, I'm with you on that. I don't know that it helps. But here's the other thing. He's putting his reputation on the line for her. He's kept quiet all these years, and now he's stepping up for her. And if she loses, part of his power, legacy goes down the tubes, too. It's kind of an interesting, he really is committed to, getting rid of Trump. And he's starting to yak about it, and I think that's a good thing. It's, in a way, he's being more vociferous in the last month or so than Biden. But Biden's the sitting president, of course. But I think it's interesting that W's getting riled up. How about this?
Yeah, I don't think you can underestimate the impact of Trump pissing on his brother Jeb or his father.
But he didn't come out about it until about a month ago.
No, that's true. He respected the sort of ex-presidential tradition of sort of not,
commenting,
getting involved in regular politics, but Trump is really
pushed his
Trump
buttons.
is trumping. So
yeah. And then he saw his nephew go full Trump and lose anyway.
Right. Yes. Right. You go full Trump after the president
destroys your father.
Attacked your father, right? It's
hell of a kid. Jesus. There's a big fail.
You go.
That's a big fail. How about Michael Flynn? He thinks
Sweet
they may
guy.
be putting the COVID vaccine in your salad dressing? Russian, perhaps?
Well, I think if it were in there, that would be good. I wish it wasn't a salad dressing. I don't know how many salads the the unvaccinated are eating. I'd say if you go to a Trump rally, you wouldn't get the impression there's a lot of salads going on.
This guy was NSA chief and was the head of he was a general?
He was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency,
exactly.
Which is not a small job, and the National Security Advisor of the President, and he was almost Trump's selection for vice presidential nominee.
How did this get missed?
He's full crazy.
Jeez, I mean, really? Okay, I mean, really? Susan Collins won't support the Dems' abortion rights bill. Gee.
Well, she's very concerned. That's her. She's very concerned. And
Matt. Yeah. How do people like her get into office and stay there? And she bugs me. You know why she bugs me more than it? I mean, she bugs me because she's like little Susie Sunshine, and below the skin is a snake.
Right. And that was the race the pollsters had the most wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, they had her losing by 10.
Right. I don't know. I don't get her. I don't get why people even look at her. I mean, I just think she's really disgraceful. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say conspiracy theories, Matt. We need to talk conspiracy theories because, the zeitgeist is now, you say, a conspiracy theory. Obama was born in Kenya. I mean, conspiracy theory.
Right, sure.
I want to make the point, not every conspiracy theory is wrong.
Right.
And I think something in America today is that it all looks so crazy that we don't think it's anything but crazy. But crazy could be the new norm. And that's how we got Trump. Because there was no way he could win. He won. There was no way he would try and, change the election. He did try. In some places, maybe he got, he at least has gotten people to believe that he's the real president. So let's just not be so cavalier when we throw out the term conspiracy theory. Some conspiracy theories are true.
Right. No, I think there's something to that. We're in a crazy age. So, that's, when the sitting president's leading a coup. I hear you.
Yeah, and I guess this goes back to my beginning outrage, which is I just think we have to change the lens in our eyes and how we feel with our heart as we look at how things are in America today. Because some of us are using old lenses, and I think those lenses just might need, an update in how we view things. But that's not how I'm going to end the show today. Here's what I'm going to end the show today on. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Johnny Mathis is 85.
How about that?
Johnny Mathis is 85. How could Johnny Mathis be 85? So is Chris Christopherson, by the way. What? I think I've been asleep. Could you come and give me a kiss and wake me up? My handsome prince.
Well, you figure they're like 40 in the 70s, so, or 30 in the 70s. They're going to be 80-something now. So,
I know, but come on. How did this happen? Don't you feel like you missed something in between?
Maybe not Johnny Mathis, but, some other ones occasionally sneak up on you. You're like, oh, right. Keanu Reeves is pushing 60.
Don't tell me that.
Well, let's see, how old is he? I think he's late 50s now.
Wow.
Yeah, how old are they? It's always a good game. It's always...
So when you're outraged, go play. How old are they now? There you go.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves is 57.
Is he? That's how old he is? He's on a new commercial down here on something. I don't pay attention to commercials generally. It's when I pick up my...
Yeah, Sandra Bullock's 57. Tom Cruise is 59, so,
See, that doesn't seem old to me. 85 seems old to me, but that just goes...
85 seems old.
Yeah. 57, we're kind of in there, right?
Yeah. Like, well, sure, it's relative to where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not like freaking out, but I had a counselor in camp who was madly in love with Johnny Mathis, and so I was into Johnny Mathis when I was like 2. So.
He does a very good Cole Nidre.
I know. Well, look, guy's got voice. He still has it, by the way.
Guy always had a lot of range. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, my love. I think that's it. Unless you've got something that I missed.
All right, dear. Well, I'm glad you're back.
So, yes, me too. So, adios, amigo.
Adios.
Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec, LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.